Hello, everybody.
Oh, my God. That's how it opens. What was that?
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
It's time for more Law Lite. Brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, fwhlegal.com. And we are excited to be with you today because we are coming at you loud and clear from 530 Frederica Street at the high-rise white brick edifice. And PJ is with me. How are you, my man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm in
Awesome.
a good mood for some reason today.
Well, it's the end of the day.
And we're going to get to something here that's, I shouldn't be in a good mood really, but I am because it's almost amusing what happened. But anyhow, got a lot to cover today. We have we have the word for the day is going to be hodgepodge.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what hodgepodge means?
It's from the Latin word Hodges Podgemus, I believe.
All right. Really?
No, I made that
Oh,
up.
that was pretty good, man. You had me. All right. So
Then yes.
Yeah, no, because we're going to talk about fact checking, so we better be accurate and not mislead anybody.
Hodgepodge means like several different things kind of all put together.
Yeah, just a smorgasbord.
Right.
Right.
A cornucopia.
Cornucopia.
Yes.
Plethora.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we have a plethora of topics that are going to make up our hodgepodge, a.k.a. cornucopia smorgasbord. How's that?
Hodgepodge mascus.
All right. Anyway, good to be here on this edition, on this podcast, Law Lite.
Yeah.
And
Episode 87.
87. All right. Well, that's incredible, and our numbers keep going up. Thank you to all of our faithful listeners from all around the world.
Including Belgium.
That's our newest one. So we are tickled that everybody is joining us and listening to Law Lite. We hope you're getting something out of this.
Oh, hey, real quick before speaking of which, I don't know if Vincent told you this, but he ran an errand earlier, and while he was there, the person that the clerk or whatever, for some reason he asked him where he worked, and he said Foreman Watson Holtry, and immediately the guy was like, "Oh, you do the podcast." And he said, "Well, I'm not on the podcast, but I do help edit some episodes." And the guy was like, "I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time."
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll need to find out where he is and send him a gift.
It was it's one of the it was like a toy shop. That's where Vincent runs his errand. I tried to avoid telling you where his errand was, but it was a toy shop.
Okay. I didn't even know we still had toy shops in Owensboro. So this has really got me
A new toy
curious.
shop opened up over in, that small little, where Red Wing Shoes is?
Yeah, right.
Okay, right in there, there's a toy store that opened up
really?
called Santa's Toys, yeah.
Huh, okay. Well, I'm out of that market, really. I'm not in the toy store
I mean, I'm not
market.
either. I just saw it one day.
So to the toy store clerk, thank you for being a faithful listener to Law Lite podcast, and to everybody else, thank you. Since we have, we're going to just kind of go this direction first, is that we do fact check our podcasts.
We do?
PJ. We have people that check it to make sure that we don't misrepresent anything or say something that is not factually correct.
Correct.
And, yes, and and so what we have been fact checked on our last episode. I stand to be corrected and want to make it publicly known. It was very nice of Chris Hughes from Thomson Reuters to be a guest on our show, And when he came, he brought me a gift. And you may recall, in fact, it's in here. It's a bottle of Maker's Mart. It's a 2013 National Championship University of Louisville special edition bottle. They only made, I think, 12,500 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I think that was the number. But anyway, it was a nice gift. But on the podcast, you may recall, I said, Chris, wow, you're the first guest to bring me a gift. Okay. Yeah. And that was not some like trying to make other people say, oh gosh, if I'm going to be a guest, now I've got to bring a gift. It was just.
Well, I'm pretty sure I jumped in and said, well, I don't know how correct that is. I think you may have gotten other gifts. And then you said, shut up, PJ. This is I'm pretty sure this is the first gift.
No. You did not do that, and now we don't need that fact checked, because I can tell you I did not say that, because if you would have said that, I would have immediately remembered what I'm about ready to disclose.
Right. I should have said it then.
So you should have said it. So it's your fault.
It is my fault.
Okay. So anyhow, it's
not
accountability. True. Even though I'm very thankful. I will say this: Chris Hughes was the first person to bring me bourbon. Okay, and that is factually accurate.
Yes.
However, we have had some very nice gifts brought to us by other guests on the podcast. And I'm going to mention those because they did not get a shout out on the podcast when they did it. And so we're going to go back and not only are we going to factually make last episode correct, we're going to do something about it. We're going to give some plugs here, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. And so as you may recall, PJ, our first guest that actually brought a gift was Larry Hayden from EM Ford Insurance, just right across the parking lot here.
Yep.
And Larry brought me a nice Yeti coffee mug. Remember that? We had a discussion, in fact, about the fact that, you're only allowed to give certain gifts and things like that.
Right.
We didn't have that on the podcast, but it was kind of in small talk beforehand. So Larry was the first to...
Which I see him all the time now, by the way.
And he parks out there in the park.
It's kind of like when you get a car and you don't notice that car.
Right.
And then suddenly you get a car and then you see suddenly it's everywhere. Right. That's how it is with Larry.
Well, and he super friendly guy. But anyway, he was the first to bring a guest.
Right.
I mean, a first guest to bring a gift. Golly. And it was a nice Yeti coffee mug, okay? And so I was very thankful for that gift. But then we've had another guest bring gifts, and this time it wasn't just for Travis. It was I got some, you got some, and I think there was a couple of them he brought. It was Blake Hayden, from Blake Hayden Real Estate, Hayden Real Estate, and he brought us some really good ground coffee.
Yeah, like locally sourced
ground coffee, and it was in nice bags with his insignia and logo sticker on it and all that. Nice gift, coffee. Everybody likes. I'm drinking some coffee right now.
You know what's funny is the three gifts that have been brought work together, because you have the Yeti mug, put a little coffee in it, put a little burnbourbon in the coffee.
That's exactly right. Wow, that's why we keep you around, PJ, because you come up with things like that. What then with Chris comes, so Chris comes with the bourbon, and I make the mistake of saying you're the first guest to bring me a gift, and so now we've corrected it. We've given shout outs to past guests, and
that's right.
Noticed there were incredible businesses here in Owensboro, and so I feel like we've gone above and beyond in correcting our mistake.
Right. And there's no malicious intent from the get-go.
No, not at all. And this isn't, again, it's not a plug saying, hey, future guests, you need to bring me gifts. Okay, I mean, it'd be nice.
Right,
but
I was going to say, there's nothing wrong with gifts. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to bring it, but why not bring a gift?
Why not try on your gift giving with us?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the place to do it.
That's right. Right. So, anything else we need to fact check? I think we're pretty close. I think we've been up to. I think that gets us closer. What any other fact checking was there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
I don't think there have been any other gifts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we're right. Okay. Let's move on to another topic in the hodgepodge.
Right.
Okay. I'm excited about this. Okay. Yesterday, Chief Justice John Minton, he is the Chief Justice from the Supreme Court of Kentucky. Okay.
Okay.
So he is the highest ranking judicial figure in Kentucky. All right, now not federally, but in the state, he's the highest ranking. And he entered an order yesterday lifting mandates due to COVID.
Getting back to normal.
So what this means is that we now are able to go back into the courthouses to conduct our business with the judges and with the clerks and things like that, face to face. Now, it's not totally 100% the way it was. There still are guidelines for if you have felt, a lot of the ones that were originally in place when we thought this was coming was if you have felt ill, if you've been exposed, stay away, don't come. And so one of the issues that we're looking at is the what effect it will have on being able to get enough jurors to have a jury trial. Because if you have, see, the way that works, and I don't know if have you ever been on jury duty?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
yes, jury duty. Yes, I was thinking. I thought you were going to ask jury trial. But.
No, but jury duty, right?
Yes,
so you know,
I have done jury duty.
They have 30 or 40 people,
yeah.
And if they have a jury trial, they'll shake up this little thing, pull out names. Those people go and they sit and they go through voir dire, the jury selection process. Okay.
Yeah, I did everything I could to get out of it. Didn't work.
Well, guess what? They're afraid that COVID will be that everything I can do to get out of it.
Right.
And I've been exposed, I don't feel good, and that kind of thing. And so one of the big concerns is we'll all show up ready to try a case, right, have done all the work, and then they'll say, well, we don't have enough jurors for a jury pool to select our juries from. So, there's still going to be some obstacles, but the good news is the major step has been we can go, and if you've been vaccinated, if you have your vaccine card and have been fully vaccinated, having received both, you do not have to wear a mask while in the courthouse. So a big order yesterday, and the other part of the order talked about the priority of criminal cases over civil cases, to get the criminal cases tried first and the deference given to criminal cases. But I'm excited because it seems like forever ago, you and I were having our first conversation here on the podcast about how would COVID affect the practice of law. And it did. It shut the courthouses down. It's made us better at conferencing in for hearings and things like that, and that stuff's still in place. In fact, you're allowed to, the order does mention, if you prefer to transact the business via Zoom, or something, you can notify on your pleadings that's how you're going to attend. So it is going to keep a lot of the things that we've learned to be better at in place, but we're not forbidden for going in the courthouse anymore.
I wonder if it'll get to a point where they'll have like digital juries to where you could, if you're unable to participate in person, they send you a private link and then you are
and all that. Right. I think that the whole deliberation thing it has to be protected to where you have access to each other's thoughts when you're deliberating with the jury,
That's true,
and things
too.
like that. But anyway, I mean, I'm with you. I think we are quickly coming upon a fully digital age where more and more will be done that way. For the time being, though, it is a huge relief to the justice system to be able to get back into the courtroom to try cases.
Oh, I can imagine.
And so that's where we're headed. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
It came down yesterday.
And I'm going to throw this out there, too, and I've talked about doing the jury duty thing before. While I understand it does temporarily upset your day-to-day routine, which is the main reason why I think everybody wants to get out of it, but I can say, if you are interested in crime shows, and I mean, I know most crime shows are about murder, but just if you're interested in crime in general and you get the opportunity to do jury duty, take it. The trial I was on went for 3 days, and it was extremely fascinating. I went into it going, ugh, I don't want to do this. But then by the time it was over with, I was really glad that I had done it.
Right. And there's a couple of things that I think bring that out in people. What it brought out in you was a genuine interest in the process and wanting to be a part. There's a couple of things that are important for that to happen. Number one is a good judge. Okay, if the judge keeps the case flowing, keeps you guys not with a lot of dead time where he takes breaks or she takes breaks to transact other court business, and you're there for 3 hours and then gone, and then the next day you're there for 2 hours and then gone, then the next day, and it gets taken out over time. It does make it a burden. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing that I think really makes trials, of course, cases are exciting by the facts of the case, and so if there's a genuine dispute and there's really good evidence on both sides, and you have attorneys that are good at articulating their side of the argument, it does engage the jury, and the jury is interested and wants to see the right outcome. So there are factors, but I'm with you. I've heard a lot of people say, I was so disgruntled about the fact that I got picked, and by the time it was over, I was like, I'm ready for the next one, and so it's a good point. It really is. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons that it has to be done in person. A jury trial, really, for just the whole effect of being in the courtroom, hearing the sound, smelling the smells. I mean, it's all there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
I won't say it was fun, but it was an experience that I'm glad that I had.
Yeah. And you would not have ever thought you'd say that at the outset.
No. Right. And I'm sure there are some jury trials that are boring. I'm sure, but you don't know until you get through it. And I mean, mine was an individual versus the police department. So of course, there was a lot. And ours wasn't like 3 hours this day, 2 hours the next day. I mean, it was like all day,
right,
all 3 days.
Well, and that keeps you engaged. It can wear you out some, but. When we've talked to juries, we do a lot of jury study, and we're building a new office in Bowling Green where we're going to have the opportunity to conduct focus groups and mock trials and things like that. We have the space to basically build a whole courtroom in it,
right?
And so we study trials. One of the things that jurors tell us that have participated on one or more juries is that. It's just you never have a say, really. Everybody is giving you instructions. Everybody's talking to you, and you feel kind of bossed around, and you're at somebody else's schedule, and you're not getting paid. You're missing time from your family. You're missing your son's ball game. You're missing.
Right.
There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so when a jury can move along, and the jury sees us making progress of witnesses coming and going and new documents coming, when they see that progress, at least they stay engaged, Yeah,
well, that's how it was for me.
Right.
And they were bringing evidence in, and like they had a whole box of evidence that they were pulling out and taking things apart and kind of showing it. It was like it was drug related. So they were showing like how individuals who sell drugs and narcotics hide them in their place of business, I guess you could say. This was at running it out of a house, but like showing these tools of the trade, and it was stuff that I had never thought of before or thought anything about, really. So that too was really fascinating to see. And
I'm sure that and every trial is different. Like the next one you get
we got
on
to
could
sample
be
the drugs. It was really.
Well, no wonder you had a good
I
time,
think that's
PJ. Incredible. I didn't know they were doing that now, just to kind of make sure
I'm kidding. That part is not true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fact check. All right. So
exactly. There you go.
Yeah, right. Fact check. All right. Well, kind of along these grounds, today you introduced to me to a concept. I guess conceptually I was aware of this, but didn't know the exact nomenclature for it. And I wanted to mention it on the podcast simply because it's an interesting topic, and maybe one that we may be able to find somebody that's like an expert on this issue to come talk, because you asked me if I was familiar with stand your ground laws. At first I thought it was maybe some kind of a bully type thing, and I guess to some degree
it's like an extreme anti-bullying tactic.
And I'm by no means an expert on this, but anytime somebody says, well, have you ever heard of the law that says, you're a lawyer, you need to express some interest in it, because what we stand for is a just application of the law. And I think you saw that immediately within minutes of you discussing this with me, my mind went to work on the loopholes of it. I was just
you jumped right on the computer and were researching it.
And that is the way, I've told stories about law school and how it changes the way you think. I was like, oh gosh, this is interesting and that kind of thing. But stand your ground laws. And for those listeners that don't know, you've been kind of listening or watching some things about this recently, and I'll let you explain what you understand it to be, and then we can kind of shed some light on what we found when we looked it up online. Honestly, I have not had the opportunity to look at this carried out by either a person that's relying on it to be exonerated, because there's two sides to the way this law affects, way this law impacts, is that you have the person that would want to be exonerated for the shooting or the injuries inflicted on somebody, right?
Right.
And then you have the other side that would say, no, you need to be prosecuted because you weren't standing your ground, okay? I haven't looked at it enough to know where I come down on it philosophically, okay? Because it does seem to be something that could easily be abused. But on the other hand, I understand the right to need to protect yourself, you know, to defend yourself. And so read. Have you found it?
There's several different definitions. And, of course, the Castle Law comes up,
right?
Which
the right to protect your home.
Correct.
You're right.
There's several different ways of saying it. It's the use of deadly force to protect oneself or property. It says the presumptive right to use deadly physical force or physical force to repel any attacker or invader. This is the interesting way of putting it, which is where my mind immediately goes with the type of law it is. It says stand your ground laws allow a person to use deadly force in a confrontation without any duty to retreat, even when they can do so safely. Now that's where that's where the gray area seems to pop up. I've noticed when I've been reading about it, because that's when people start calling it justifiable homicide.
Exactly.
Because you don't have to, in some states you don't have to retreat, even though they would say, well, if you can get away safely without the use of deadly force, that's the route that should be taken.
Right.
But some people are going right to the use of deadly force without even attempting to see, is there a safe way for me to get myself out of this?
And then there's the escalation of force, like example that you gave me that you had read about or heard about, I don't know. A guy was walking to his car in a parking lot and got pushed down.
Right.
And he feared that this person that pushed him was going to continue. Allegedly, he says that I was fearful. I needed to defend myself. I was afraid for my life, and so he pulls a gun and shoots him and kills him.
Right.
To me, that's an escalation of force, because I when you punch or push someone, right, that's different than pulling a gun and holding a gun to them, right?
Right.
And so when you respond to a shove that knocks you off your feet by pulling a gun and shooting someone, are you standing your ground or are you escalating it? And I think that's the gray area, kind of like it's a little bit different of a gray area than you talked about. You were talking about the ability to retreat. Now, maybe that guy didn't have the ability to retreat because his attacker was going to be right on top of him again. But did he have the right to answer basically a physical shove that knocked him off balance with deadly force?
And see, that's according to the article that I read. It said that he cited the stand your ground rule when the police arrived, and that's why. And he wasn't arrested because of that, because he said that he was fearful for his life.
Right. And you were talking to me about, like, I guess. And I do not want to pigeonhole any special interest group about this. But you said that people that are extremely knowledgeable on gun rights and those kinds of things, I guess, have put together cards that if you carry a gun and you think you are a person that's going to rely upon the stand your ground, that when the police come, there are like 4 or 5 sentences you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
It's not this synonymous with the Miranda rights that everybody knows. You got the right to remain, but it's some things that they suggest. These are things you say to help you be able to, I guess, fall back on the stand your ground laws.
Right. It's now where I got this information from was, and I'm citing my source in case people are like, well, how does he know what he's talking about? But there's a show called Last Week Tonight. It's an HBO show. John Oliver's the host, and they actually talked recently about stand your ground laws. So
I am so sorry. So for those of you
just got Harry Pettigode.
Yeah, for those that wonder, PJ is very very protective and vigilant about making sound with our hands during the podcast because it has to be edited out. And I was just playing with the cords that attach the microphone. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're
I ask
good.
for
It
forgiveness.
happens. It
Just
happens.
You're
forgiven.
Do not exercise force.
I won't. Don't
because
worry.
I may be
left,
scared to death and need to stand my ground.
When I left the house this morning, I only had room for a Snickers bar or my gun, so I left my gun so I could bring a Snickers bar.
Okay, then I'm safe.
So you're lucky.
You're well fed, but
is
not
lucky.
protected.
That's right. Well,
Okay.
I don't know if well fed.
But anyhow, so tell us your source again.
Okay, so
before
it's
I
called
interrupt.
it's Last Week Tonight, and during this episode, they were talking about stand your ground laws. They discussed. So if you're curious as to what group I'm talking about, you could easily watch that episode because they're like 30 minutes long. But anyway, in that it does talk about this group. And it's not the NRA, but I want to say it may have something to do with them, but don't quote me on that. But they have a membership card.
Okay, that's what.
On the back of this membership card, it actually has it's like a 2 or 3 sentence phrase that you should say in the event that you have to shoot to kill, and you're citing the stand your ground law as the reasoning for your actions. And it has it's like a key phrase, or it uses key words that gives you essentially, I guess the idea is it gives you immunity for having killed someone because you were essentially fearful for your life.
Right. Okay, well, there's a couple of things that I do want before we move on to our next topic in the Hodgepodge today. There's a couple of things I want to make sure our listeners are not confused about. Number one is that there is not a federal stand your ground law. Okay, it differs from state to state.
Right.
So if this is something that interests you and you think that this is something that you may be, that you may rely upon, first you need to look at your state's laws with regards to the laws for stand your ground. Okay. Right.
There's 38 states that have stand your ground.
And Kentucky
laws.
does.
And Kentucky's one of them.
Kentucky does. And ours was last amended, I think we read, in 2006 to extend to your auto. Remember? Yeah. So now you can stand your ground in your car. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I think this is what really extended the scope of Kentucky's stand your ground law. Anywhere you have the right to be, okay?
Right.
So now if I am trespassing, all right, if I'm on someone's property and don't have their permission in that moment to be there, and I, quote, stand my ground against deadly force by using deadly force, that's an issue that directly comes from the language of the stand your ground law in Kentucky. You have to have the right to be there. If you're a trespasser and don't have the right to be there and you use deadly force, probably not going to be protected by the stand your ground law. But then again, as you and I said, it's gray as to whether or not you have the right to be there.
What if you're going for a jog and you are what you believe to be attacked and you're 2 blocks away from your house on a total stranger's property, and you pull out a gun and shoot someone.
Exactly.
So there's the gray area, right?
Yeah. And I think the better gray area was the scenario that you came up with. You had a great analogy. When I was challenging you, when we were kind of going back and forth about this, you said, all right, let's say that I'm sitting there at my kitchen sink and I look out my window and I see 2 people in my neighbor's house, and I'm good friends with my neighbor, and I know that I can tell they're burglars. They have masks on or whatever, and my neighbor's not there. And I try to get in touch with my neighbor, and I can't get in touch with my neighbor. But I know that my neighbor would want me to protect his home, right? Can I go into that house and can I shoot these people? And I think this was a real case that you heard about.
Yeah, it was an actual individual. And once again, this was all I got this from Last Week Tonight, because this guy ended up he went out and he killed the 2 people, shot them with a shotgun that were breaking into his neighbor's house, but he didn't get arrested, and they brought him on TV and were calling him a hero. And they show the interview with this guy. It was like it was like Good Morning America or one of those types of shows.
But he was heralded as a hero, yet the forensics come back and show that the 2 intruders were shot in the back.
Right.
Right. Now let's just say stand. First of all, in the whole idea, stand your ground. You're being your ground, right? But doesn't it seem like in that situation that he went looking for he went looking for the controversy?
Yes, and the evidence to that effect is in the 911 call, because they actually have that audio that they play on the show, and it has him calling and talking to dispatch, and dispatch tells him no less than a dozen times, do not leave your house, do not go over there and get involved with these two individuals. And he starts arguing with this dispatcher about how it's his right to do this and that he's going to do it. So,
but he was not being threatened at that time.
Not at all. And you can tell by the way he's talking, like he is itching
to shoot somebody,
to go shoot these people. Now here's the thing. I get where some people might go, well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, i.e. you're a burglar and you're breaking into someone's house. Well, maybe if you weren't burgling then and you got a real job, then you wouldn't have got shot and killed.
Right.
I get that. But at the same time, to me, it would be like that's the neighbor's responsibility because it's him protecting, or law enforcement, but not the neighbor who's sitting over there completely, even though he's seeing it happen, but he's really not involved whatsoever. He's just wanting to go be involved.
And let me just put this one out there, okay? I have. In our family, we have 7 teenagers. Well, some of them are now beyond teenagers, but kids still, right? I mean,
right.
And they love playing pranks, and they love doing jokes, and they love doing crazy stuff. And you film crazy stuff. You film crazy stuff. And let's say
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right? Like horror. Yeah, right. Okay, but my point is, how does he know that these two people aren't playing some type of prank,
right?
Or that they're doing some type of spoof, or or some, you don't know.
Yeah.
And to give so he was not being threatened. His life was not being threatened when he made this call, argued with the dispatcher, and then goes over and shoots 2 people in the back.
Well, I have a great example that I was directly involved with. So back in it was like 1999, my cousin, who was just dating his now wife, April, he was at the house with her. My uncle and them were gone for the evening or whatever. So he and I planned this prank, and I had a Scream costume. So what happened was he had a date set up with the two of them, so they were alone in the house. Well, what he did was he came and got me. I came over. I dressed up in the Scream costume, and I had a butcher knife. And then what I did was I was walking, and this is at night. This is like 8 o'clock at night. I'm walking around the house in a Scream costume, and I was like terrorizing them, right? Well, he was in on it, and she wasn't. But eventually what happened was I got into the house and I hid in like a laundry room, and he got her to come into the kitchen, and he angled her just right to where she could see me half in and half out of this room. And I'm standing there in a Scream costume with a butcher knife in my hand. She freaks out and takes off running. So long story short, what if a neighbor had seen me prowling around,
heard her scream?
Well, I was in the house at that point.
But I'm just saying,
regardless, if the neighbor had seen me dressed up in a costume with a butcher knife and assumed that I was doing something nefarious, then they could have easily just come out and shot me, and that was it.
That's the scenario that of this real life thing that you told about this guy, and that's where I think, I think that's taking that law too far.
Right.
Okay, I do, and it's my opinion, and I like the idea of the concept of defending yourself.
Right.
But I think when you go and make someone else's business your business, and you use that as an excuse to shoot 2 people in the back, that is not the intent of the law. It can't be the intent of the law.
Well, I think that's why they have been asking for a lot of states, individuals and organizations are asking for a lot of reform. They're not saying get rid of this law.
Right.
They're saying, look, make it more defined, as in, yes, you can defend yourself or whatever, but there's still limitations
correct
to you being able to defend yourself, because then you're not getting away with murder.
Right.
Because there's always going to be that person who takes advantage of the law
and pushes it the envelope. Right.
Right.
Real quick, Great subject. Okay, I love it. And these are the kind of things that people tell us they want to hear on the podcast from time to time. Is some legal issues and some educational issues. So this is a perfect example. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention earlier today. And we'll as more and more things like this come up, we will jump on the bandwagon and discuss them.
Yeah, and maybe we can have John on at some point. And kind of circle back around to it.
And again, I'm open to hearing insight from people far more educated. I mean, my education on this is literally 30 minutes of maybe looking at the internet and figuring it out. So anyway, I have something funny to share with you, and you may have overheard me talking about this of just a few minutes before we came in, but today I set a record, PJ.
You should be proud.
I set a record, and I should be upset, right? I cannot give details about the case. I can't give one detail about the case, but I can say that I broke a record today with the case.
And what's the record?
I was hired to be someone's attorney, and I walked upstairs, put all of the new materials. The meeting went really well with this particular client. Answered questions with them about an hour. Okay. Came upstairs, sat their things on our workspace right outside my office, gave instructions to our paralegal as to things I needed done immediately. Our paralegal began to do that. In fact, began to give me documents to answer my questions so that I would know the next steps to take. While I'm looking at some of those documents that she was able to get, while I'm looking at it, we get a phone call, and the client's mother terminates me. And jokingly, I said to my paralegal, well, gosh, I haven't even had time to mess this one up. How did I get terminated? Now, there will be more to this story, okay, and maybe it's a developing story. I will say that I take very seriously the work I do here, and I know I could have helped this particular person. But, one of the things that's great about a free market is we have choices of who we want to hire to do services for us and what goods to buy and where to buy them. It's a great system. And I wish this person the best of luck, and I hope that they find an attorney that will work hard for them. But it set a record. I have never been terminated. On my hand, I can count how many times I've been terminated. On one hand, I've been terminated. I think this may be the fourth or fifth, okay?
Getting close to that second hand.
I know, I'm getting close to the second hand, but never has it been within 10 minutes. I mean, this set a record, an all-time record.
I'm assuming the mother was not here.
No. The mother was not present, and I don't want to give, but I'm not talking about hiring a child either. I mean, the child didn't hire me.
Right. Well, yeah,
okay?
it was an adult.
It was an adult. Yes, an adult. We're not talking about one that's just barely an adult either. This person is well into adulthood.
Right. Now, can the smother actually fire you, though?
She could not. I explained that. And I explained that I would have to have something in writing that would terminate the relationship so that would give this particular client the right to talk to other lawyers or the ability to talk to other, because most lawyers won't talk to you if they know you're represented. So we got something sent over to us in an email, and I take it for what it's worth. And we're blessed to have lots of cases here, and I'm not going to, I'm blessed to have the ones I have. I would like to have this case. Don't know why. But
now, if they circle back around, will you be hesitant to take them back on, being that they're the 10-minute client, or will you? I will. I will probably have to have a conversation, setting expectations. Don't tell your mom.
Yeah, right. Well, I would, you have to be careful having a conversation with the mom present because of attorney-client privilege.
Right.
Because anything that's said to the client is confidential. But if the mom overhears that, she could be forced to repeat things that I said because she's not the client. Yeah. So there's a lot of little things about it. The end of it is I know in my heart I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, went above and beyond. And so it's it's just, I think, you know what it really is? It's a product of a lack of trust. And because there are so many attorneys that have taken advantage of people,
right,
that there is a lack of trust, and we do need to be policed. We need to be, we need to be constantly questioned about the work that we do. We welcome those questions here at Foreman Watson Holtry. We will answer them. We will we'll be accountable. If you
well, it's fact checking.
That's right. That's why we want to make sure.
Right back around to it.
So anyway, it's been a great podcast. I appreciate your time today. We've covered a whole lot of ground.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we have just the two of us talking, our topics are sometimes circle back around to firm marketing and what you're doing, what I'm doing. But today we've been able to have some good discussion about other things. So good job, man. Way to put together a great show. Yeah. This has been More Law Lite. As always, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, FWHlegal.com. Check out our website and check us out on all platforms of social media. Until next time.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!